Yes. Yeah. Is the slide visible?
Yes, ma'am. The slides are visible, ma'am.
Hello?
Yes, ma'am. The slides are visible, ma'am.
Are you able to see the slides?
Yes, ma'am. The slides are visible, ma'am. You can continue, ma'am.
Okay, okay, yeah, yeah. So, I'll be taking a session on introduction to research methodology. Maybe yesterday you must have gone through what is research. A quick recap of what, again, you already know. Research is basically it's a search for knowledge, right? So, an art of scientific investigation. Suppose you have got a problem and you want to, search the solution of that problem. You go for research. It's a careful inquiry through the search of new facts or concepts in any branch of knowledge. Let's say if we see there are diverse branches of branches, right? Suppose if it is science, then we generally, let's say take the case of chemistry, we generally mix 2 3 salts and then we try or a new formulation, and then we test the new formulation. So that is again something which leads to the invention or the discovery. Another is our social sciences domain, where we study the behavior of the people, right? Again, one problem, multiple solutions. When we suppose say if somebody wants to do the research on street children, and this street children, the problem is why the street children are begging, right? So if we see this problem, there are multiple prospects of this problem, right? The first prospect which comes out from the, let's say, psychology, because it's a parents of psychology of the parents to make them beg or work on the streets, right? Another researcher who is from, let's say, management stream will say, okay, it's, yeah, the upbringing, or it's the some, theory underlying that, like the needs and the wants are not satisfied, so that is why they are want to like begging, right? And a person who is from education field says that maybe it's the education system is faulty, and this education faulty system that leads to multiple dropouts. So that could be one of the reasons. So problem is one, that is street children, and again there are multiple prospects of solving a problem, right? Let's say again it's telemedicine adoption, right? Telemedicine is when we speak to the doctor through phone or through some equipments, right? So now telemedicine, from if we study it from the behavioral point of view, then we can say, okay, right, it's just the factors which lead to the adoption, or there are certain factors which hinder the adoption of telemedicine adoption among the patients as well as the doctors. Now, but when it is from the scientific part, let's say when the people from science, they want to do the same type of research, so then they say, okay, fine, let's have certain interventions, let's design a new architecture for the adoption of telemedicine in India. So the problem is same. Idea is to penetrate the telemedicine in Indian villages, or let's say in Indian cities, but different people, different subjects, and different ways of doing the research, right? So here the research is a process of systematic inquiry or approach that details. First of all, we collect the data. If we talk about the management research, we first of all collect the data. We document the critical or important information, analyze that data, and again, in accordance with the suitable methodologies, we come out with the relevant information or come out with the relevant results. So research is generally conducted to evaluate the validity of a hypothesis or a conceptual framework. Now, what is the conceptual framework? Conceptual framework in our like in our languages, like there are two types of frameworks, right? One is theoretical framework and another is conceptual framework. Theoretical framework is when you pick up any theory, let's say you pick up the Maslow's theory and use as such in your research, right? Let's say you pick up any model of technology adoption. Let's say you pick up TAM model, right? Perceived ease of use, usefulness, and intention, and then actual use. And you apply as such into this, that is your theoretical framework. But when you add certain constructs of your own, something specifically related to your domain, let's say again, I took the example of telemedicine, right? So if you add information quality, right, so that becomes your conceptual framework. Means you are modifying the existing framework which is available as per your research, right? So this is the difference between conceptual and theoretical framework. I'll give you a very simple example to my all my students also. Like, let's say there is a certain recipe of soup, and you take that recipe of soup from your mother, right? So in case you are taking the recipe of soup from your mother as such without any change in the ingredients, so that is your theoretical framework because you are using the work of somebody else, right? And but if you add certain, let's say, black pepper or oregano to the soup, so that becomes your conceptual framework. That is what you have modified the existing theory as per your knowledge, as per your domain, as per your context. So this is the difference, right? So, the purpose of the research, first of all, what is the criteria of a good research? That is, first of all, the purpose of research should be clearly defined. You should know what you want to do and in which direction you want to do, right? Again, you all remember the story of a seahorse when he wanted to go to find his fortune and he was left nowhere, right? Are you aware of that story? Are you aware of that story? Yes, anyone? Yes, students, anyone who is aware of that story? You may please unmute and speak. Are you aware of the story of
No,
seahorse?
ma'am. No, ma'am.
No? Okay, so I'll
No,
tell you. So what happened? There was a seahorse. I generally tell this story to my students also. So there was a seahorse and he wanted to find his fortune. So he went. He had 8 cents with him. So he, went and went, dived deep into the sea and found some, let's say, octopus. And he asked the octopus, right? Have you seen my fortune? Octopus, see, I don't have seen your fortune, but you can give me 4 cents and take this, jet from me. This will help you to speed up, and you will reach your, fortune soon. So he gave 4 cents to the octopus and then he went ahead. Right. So, just a moment. Excuse me, sir. My session music. So, yeah. Uh, so, yes, then he dived and then he found one, whale on the way, and he asked the whale, uh, "Hey, have you seen my fortune?" So whale said, "No, I haven't seen, but I have a scooter with me. You can give me remaining 4 cents, and then you proceed, right?" So he also again went ahead, right? And then he found again that dolphin, and dolphin ko he asked, okay, have you seen my fortune? She opened her mouth and says, okay, please go inside, so your fortune is there. So this is what happens, when we don't know what is the purpose of research, we keep on moving, and without entering, we are lost somewhere else. So that is why the purpose of the research is very clear. Your research question has to be very, very clear. Otherwise, it would be very difficult for us to survive without a adequate research question and the purpose. Then comes the research procedure. So research procedure is, it should be, whenever you go for a research, it should be described in the sufficient detail to permit another researcher to repeat. See, when you are doing a research or a PhD, you would definitely want, fine, someone should be there to take your research carry forward, right? When I did my research on online shopping. So I just validated one important part, that was cash on delivery mode of payment, because I started my research somewhere in the year of 2012. And that time, even the year Amazon had not entered the Indian market. So I validated the cash on delivery mode of payment as a new construct, and then I used it with existing models. So what happened? By 2016, there was demonetization, and then Now, someone took the base of my research from my institution only and conducted a research on digital mode of payment as a mediator, right? So this is how, when you research, you stop at somewhere. There are certain limitations which you give to other people. Yes, these are the limitations of my study. Let other people browse and work on these limitations, right? So this is the procedure which you should be very much clear. That is your research design, in fact, the blueprint of your research. Then the researcher should report with complete frankness flaws, because see, it's not like, if your hypothesis is rejected and you will start making hue and cry. No, never, right? Even if your hypothesis is rejected, this is also a research, right? This is the research of your finding with your context. So there is no point, because even if your all your hypotheses have been rejected, it's even then it's okay, right? Because that means there are certain other factors on which you need to work, right? The analysis of the data, validity and reliability of the data should be checked. So yes, do you know what is reliability and validity of the data? Yes, anyone? Can you tell me what is the reliability and validity of the data? Okay. See, reliability is, whenever, suppose, let's say you develop a questionnaire, and then while developing a questionnaire, you want to check whether it is giving you the consistent results or not, right? So maybe, let's say you developed a questionnaire or you developed a particular method. After 10 years again you are going to check it. So that means, like, you are going to go for the, that means your questionnaire or the scale which you have developed, that is a reliable scale. And validity says, actually it's measuring what it is supposed to measure, right? Let's say your question wants to measure the customer satisfaction, but does it has the questions related to your customer satisfaction, or it is speaking something else? It's speaking some, product details, or let's say easy to use a product, right? So that is the validity, right? And again, conclusions should be confined to those justified by the data of the research. And greater confidence in research is warranted if the researcher is experienced and has good reputation, right? So always try to do your research with experience, with, never fudge the data, because ultimately that will be caught. And sooner or later, because see, every single digit which you write, that has got a connection, right? See, if you are increasing the correlation, then automatically regression may, there must be certain values which will change, right? So as an experienced researcher, never ever change your data set, right? So this is the research process. We have a research question, right? We have data. We synthesize that data in the light of that research question, and then we give the conclusions and recommendations. And these are the types of researches. I'll tell these researches one by one: basic, applied, exploratory, conclusive, descriptive, and causal. So basic research is the basic premise. This is very basic research, and what you need to know. Basic research is also known as pure research, fundamental research, or discovery research, because it will lead to the innovation, it will lead to the invention. So this is very basic research, something which is related with the science students. Whatever science students, they do some research. Suppose, let's say, pharmacy students, or let's say healthcare students, or physics chemistry students, because they are going to find some new invention, some new discoveries. Let's say somebody is working on the dark matter, or something, somebody is working on the astronomy, or some, atmospheric pressures they are maintaining, they're trying to find something new. So that is your basic research. That is your basic research. And applied research is, it is a solution or action oriented research that is contextual and practical in approach. So, fundamental research or basic research, that means gathering knowledge and extending the already existing body of knowledge in the objectives of such research, right? So, let's say, uh, you're gathering the knowledge, and in that context, you are extending the already existing body of knowledge. Let's say, there are certain chemical formulations, they're already there, right? But then you are adding certain, ingredient to change the context. Or let's say you are giving certain hormones to plants to see their effect. That is again, the basic or pure research, right? It is mainly concerned with generalizations. Let's say waking up early is good for health, and with the formulation of a theory, you just study some theory of balance card, scorecard, right? If you design or develop a theory, let's say Maslow's need hierarchy, that is also your basic research, right? Or pure research. So here the outcome is not known. Suppose you have designed a theory or you have developed a theory, but you don't know whether it is successful or not, whether it will work or not. It's a chemical formulation. Let's say it's a chemical formulation, and again, whether you are giving, or else you are giving certain hormone treatment to some rat, or let's say some let's say fishes also, but whether that hormone treatment will increase or decrease the capacity of a animal or a plant, so that you don't know, right? That is what, for what you need to wait, you need to give certain doses, one dose, then another dose, then another dose, and then you need to compare. So in science, basic research is performed to further or to increase the scientific knowledge. For example, concept of human DNA, concept of neurotransmitters, work about dark matter, I already gave the example. And whereas in social sciences, there is the development of theories and models, right? So objective of their fundamental or basic research is just to study, not to solve a problem, right? You may or may not be able to solve the problem with the basic or fundamental research. So there are again, types of researches. One is exploratory and conclusive. So exploratory is a loosely structured research, because one of our student, she did research on, let's say, harassment of women in medical stream. And what he did was, he did the vignette study where she used to take the interviews of the women and ask the questions, and then the statements what they told, they were transcribed using certain softwares. So that is a sort of exploratory research. And conclusive research, it is a structured and definite in orientation. So these studies are generally conducted to formulate a hypothesis, and as a result of which, uh, again, you test the hypothesis. I'll give you an example. Let's see if I open them research paper for the conclusive research. Let's say, for example, are you able to see this paper?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So this is a paper on which we worked. Yes. So this is adoption of e-vehicles among consumers. In this paper, okay, Acrobat is not, mm, the screen got blank. I don't know why. Okay, yeah. So this paper, see here, it is, we worked on this paper, and these research papers are, I think it's very cold here, so that is where this is getting. Okay, I'll show the paper later, right? Let the Acrobat settle down. Yeah. So conclude. So here is the difference between exploratory and conclusive research. Exploratory research is loosely structured in design, right? Whereas a conclusive research, it is well structured and systematic in design. Exploratory or your basic research is flexible, right? You need to investigate a particular phenomena, whereas your conclusive research, they have a formal or definite methodology that needs to be followed, right? simply like, hypothesis testing, fine. So we develop a hypothesis on the basis of literature review, then we test it with the help of the statistics, and likewise. So exploratory research may or may not involve, hypothesis, but again, most conclusive researches are carried out to test the formulated hypothesis. Finding exploratory may findings might be topic specific, but again, the inconclusive, the findings are significant as they have theoretical and applied implications. Let me see. I think this is visible now, right?
Yes, ma'am.
See, yeah, as I said, in by giving the example of seahorse, we start with research questions, right? So we started with two research questions. What are the main predictors of the consumer intentions to adopting vehicles? And the second was, again, what is the impact of actual use on sustainability dimensions? So again, I was talking about the theoretical and conceptual framework, right? So here, to conceptualize the constructs, we took two theories, norm activation and theory of planned behavior. Theory is again, this theory gave us the base, right? Then again, as far as hypothesis is developed, you can just see we have taken the theory plus literature and developed the hypothesis like this, right? This is the these are the hypotheses developed. H2 is the hypothesis. C, perceived value positively impacts the BI to use e-vehicles, right? Then this is with sustainability goals, and this is the model which we tested, right? This is the model which was framed, conceptual framework I'm asking, because here we validated two theories plus we added another dimension of actual use, and with actual use we measure the sustainability also, that actual use of e-vehicles that will lead to perceived environmental, perceived social, and perceived economic impact, right? So this is how it goes. And this is the methodological framework. We started with literature. We had a discussion with academicians. Then we developed a conceptual model. We did a survey, data collection, initial data quality checks, data analysis, and then we performed the statistical analysis. And empirical validation, that was the last step. So methodology, we have the sampling strategy, which is, although again, not into this, I'll just give the overview. Instrumentation, where we develop the instrument scale, we collect the data, then we go for the initial data screening test where we check various biases, again, common method bias and all these. And then we go for the testing of this model, and this comes out to be like this. Now here you can see the dotted relationships. Are you seeing the dotted relationships? Are you able to see the dotted relationships, subjective norms and financial incentive policy? Yes. Are you able to see this relation? This one
Yes, ma'am.
and this one, right? So these relationships, what they say is they are insignificant. That is, they do not impact the adoption of e-vehicles, right? And then there is discussion and implications to the society. These are the scales which we questionnaire which we developed. So this is how a research paper is. Any questions? Or you will ask questions at the end. Any questions? Any queries which you want to discuss? Or you want at the end? Last
We'll be
question?
having interaction session at the end, ma'am.
Correct. Done. So this is a basic mixed method research design. Generally nowadays, what is the trend is you go for mixed method research designs, right? Like first of all, I'll give you the example of one of my students. Again, what he did was let's say in Punjab there is a problem of paddy stubble burning, and this paddy stubble burning leads to again good good amount of pollution, or we can call air pollution. So what we did is we just conducted some interviews among the farmers, and then taking their opinions, we formulated the questionnaire and then we validate. So that is a mixed method. We started with the qualitative or interviews, right? And then we formulated the questionnaire, checked its reliability and validity, and finally we went for the qualitative research design, right? So here it is, a convergent parallel design says we start quantitative first, then we go qualitative, right? Suppose let's say you collected the data and then you see if fine there are certain discrepancies in the data, and then you start taking the interviews to validate it. And the opposite of this is explanatory sequential design, where we determine that if it is qualitative data collection and analysis, it needs further interpretation. And exploratory means you use qualitative results to develop a new instrument or a taxonomy. This we call it a scale development type of studies, right? You take the interviews and then you develop a scale. You develop the scale. Let's say again one of our researcher is doing a research on this safety measures during the operation theaters, right? So what he is doing is he just had the interviews, and then again he from those interviews he tried to build a questionnaire, and then he's studied that questionnaire and got the interpretation of the same. So this is the difference between three: exploratory, descriptive, and causal, right? So exploratory is you are unaware of the problem. That means you don't know why your sales are declining and whether the people will purchase your new product or not, right? Descriptive means you are aware of the problem, you know what is happening, and again like you are aware of the problem and you know what kind of people will purchase your product and who buys your competitor's product. And again in descriptive, what features do buyers prefer in our product, right? What are the features which buyers will prefer in your product? And causal research means problem is clearly defined, right? Will buyers purchase more of our products in new package? Because here what you are doing is you are increasing the size of the package, and that increase in the size of the package will lead to purchase of more of your products. Or which of the two advertising campaigns is more effective? That is, you have two advertising campaigns and you're comparing, right? So this is the causal research, and here the problem is clearly defined. Now when you need to go for the exploratory research, first of all, when you must define the problem more precisely, you need to search, right? What is the problem? Then when you need to isolate the variables and relationships, because you need to see which variables are important and which variables are, whether they will impact any phenomena or not. Then when you identify the courses of action which need to be taken to solve a problem, and to develop the, see, hypothesis testing is not there, right? It is the development of the hypothesis, right? You build a theory, you build a model, and you develop the hypothesis by taking the interviews or by searching the literature. That is your exploratory research. So these are the methods: survey. First of all, you go for the survey of experts. Then pilot study. Pilot study is a short study. It's a study of, when you take a this when you take the interviews, or when you take some study which is of very where you pick up the sample, that is convenience sampling, that is your pilot study, right? So in pilot study, what you do is you pick up a sample and then you see whether the scale which you have developed or the way you are going, whether that is appropriate or not, right? There are two, things which are related to the pilot surveys. One is the pre-testing of the questionnaire, because I just go to questionnaire part. So let's say you have developed a questionnaire, then what you do is you get it pre-tested for the face and content validity from certain academicians or experts in the area, right? Face validity means, like, yes, on the face it's looking good, right? And content validity means whether it has that content, initially also I told you whether it has that content. Let's say you are measuring the customer satisfaction, but does the questionnaire has the questions on customer satisfaction? Is it not measuring something else? Is it not measuring some, buyer preferences or something? So once it is pre-tested, then you go for pilot testing. Right, pilot testing means you check the reliability and validity by using the Cronbach alpha. In fact, reliability is by your Cronbach alpha, and validity generally, if you check, you go for the sampling adequacy or something like that. So pilot survey is very important. Initially, we used to say, okay, pilot study है, छोटा study है, but no, it's very, very, very important because see, imagine your situation, you have collected the data, and then you know when you realize that your data is not up to the objectives, then what? The scale which you have made taken, that is not measuring your objectives, then what? So whole time, effort, money, traveling is wasted. So pilot study is just very, very, very important, right? Then the next is secondary data analyzed in the qualitative way, right? Means you're taking the interviews, or you're taking the vignette studies, or you're taking some let's say sentiment analysis. So these again, they are also part of the exploratory research. Qualitative research, it is comprising of your this secondary data only, right? So this is the difference between the qualitative and quantitative research, right? So qualitative research and quantitative research mean the purpose of the, just a moment. The purpose of the qualitative research is to understand and interpret the social interactions, whereas in quantitative analysis, we test the hypothesis. Hypothesis is the assumption based on the previous research literature, right? You check the cause and the effect, and then you develop the predictions for the future. This is your quantitative analysis, where you go take the case with help of softwares like SPSS or MOS, or you come out with the results. In qualitative, the group or the sample is small as compared to quantitative, because in quantitative we generally test then whether the data is adequate, because the bigger is the data size, the better would be the results. So in qualitative, again, you work on words, images, and objects, whereas in quantitative, you work on numbers and statistics. Data form, you have open-ended responses in this qualitative, where you take the interviews, you observe the participants, you take the field notes, and then, but here in quantitative you have precise measurements. Let's say your questionnaire is binded into five let's say subsections: strongly disagree, neutral, agree, or strongly agree. So here you are binding the respondent to these five options, and then you are telling them to uh, again work on this. And in the type of data analysis, statistical relationship identification or statistical relationship testing is there in case of your quantitative data analysis, whereas in qualitative, you work on the patterns, you work on the features, you work on the themes, and then work on the identification. So researcher's role, researcher may be known to the participants in the study in qualitative part, but here in quantitative, the researchers and their biases are not known. See, when you're taking the interview, obviously everybody will know you, right? So here you know a person to whom you are taking the you're talking, and you're taking the information, and you are familiar with the participants characteristics. But in this case, no. In quantitative, it's not possible. Results, particular findings, right? And less generalizable because it is specific, and they are the quantitative may, the they are the generalized findings that can be applied to other populations also. So When to use qualitative and when to use a quantitative, that is again very important. So a rule of thumb for deciding whether to use qualitative or quantitative is, suppose quantitative, again I'm repeating, if you want to confirm or if you want to test something, let's say you want to test a theory, let's say you want to test the theory given by the Maslow, or you want to test a theory, technology adoption model, give it TAM, which we call, or or you want to test a self-determination theory, or you want to test any theory of planned behavior. So you use a quantitative research, right? And then when you want to understand the something like concept, some thoughts, some experiences, that time you go for qualitative research. So for most of the research studies, you can always choose any of these, right? Any of these. And again, when we see you know when we use any theory, either you can adapt a model by adding some context related to your research. I've got another research paper to share with you. Is this visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So this is e-learning adoption by undergraduate architecture students, where we worked on the facilitators, like the factors which facilitate or which encourage to use a particular technology, and inhibitors, that is the factors which restrict you from using a particular technology, right? So this is again, why we picked up architecture students, because see, general so everybody will do, but in architecture comprises of the complicated drawings, right? It comprises of some juries or so, which is really difficult to teach online, right? So here also, what we did, I'll just go. This is the introduction. We started with the research questions. Always have research questions in your research paper, right? Because in your research paper, you are going to find the answer to those research questions. Right? So, what are the fact facilitators that motivate students to adopt e-learning in the architecture course, and what are the inhibitors that discourage the students to adopt e-learning, right? So here, when we take up the theoretical background, so these were the various, technology adoption models. Out of them, we picked up the latest one, that was the UTAUT2. That is again, comprised of 7 constructs. So this is how we went, and this is the model which we built. See, this is the model which we built. Now, we took UTAUT2, and in UTAUT2 comprises of only 7 constructs: performance expectancy, effort, facilitating conditions. Performance expectancy means using a particular technology will increase my performance. Effort expectancy means it is easy to use. Facilitating conditions is that you're having adequate infrastructure to use a particular technology. Social influence means when you are social, you are this motivated by your friends and peers. Hedonic motivation means using any technologies are fun. And then price value means it's worth money, right? Habit means now you're used to that technology, but from the architectural point of view, we added multimedia interactions and academic tenacity. Multimedia interactions means, because since the architecture students, they are going to work strictly between the complicated drawings using the multimedias, right? So multimedia instructions means, if the multimedia instructions are clear, then so then it's easy for them to comprehend, right? It's easy for them to comprehend. It is easy for them to understand the complicated drawings, right? And then we took another construct, that is academic tenacity. So academic tenacity is something, the mindset or the skills that again allow the students to look beyond short term courses or to long term courses. Means like first you start with the certificate course, then you start with the diploma, then you start with the degree online, right? So this is the your academic tenacity. And again you start from the short term concerns to longer term or higher term goals, right? So these were the drivers which we pick. Then psychological risk means psychologically I feel very weak to join any e-learning course. Technological risk, I'm not comfortable with the technology. Evaluation, maybe I'm not evaluated well online by my teacher. Interaction, I'm scared to interact with my teacher. And time risk is, let's say, when we go for the villages, because see, internet is not about the tier 2 and tier 3 cities, it is about the hamlets or villages also. So again, due to lack of connection, I'm wasting my time. So these were the variables which we took, and we did this with respect to architectural students. And finally the same, we started with the data collection, data analysis, reliability, validity we checked, structural model we checked, and then when the result was like this. So here you can see the dotted line, social influence and price value, they are insignificant. And likewise here in this also, technological risk also emerged insignificant. So that means again, what, see, not all the hypotheses are acceptable. There are certain hypotheses which are rejected also, and you shouldn't feel bad when the hypothesis is rejected or a hypothesis rejected. Okay, what will happen? Yes, that is also a research, right? Shall I proceed?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So this is how we go. We all, our research approach, our research question is very, very, very important, right? And you tend to find the answer to your question with your research, right? So always write your research question in your what? In your introduction. So again, in when you want to use an exploratory research, you need to formulate a problem or define a problem, identify various courses of action, then develop the hypothesis, isolate key variables, and then gain insights for developing an approach to the problem and establish. So now is your descriptive research. Descriptive research speaks about the characteristics of a group, like determine what proportion of people who act in a certain way, or it helps to make the predictions. These are the descriptive studies because you are studying the already existing phenomena, let's say sales studies, consumer perception and behavior studies. So the research paper which I showed to you people, they are all your what? They are all your descriptive research studies, right? It is again of two types, longitudinal and cross-sectional. Cross-sectional design means collection of information from a given sample of population elements only once, right? So it includes your field research or survey research. And in longitudinal design, a fixed sample of population elements is measured repeatedly on the same variables. I'll give you an example. Let's say, we are doing a research on the postpartum depression uh, among women, right? Let's say postpartum depression among women. That is very common nowadays. Postpartum depression is the depression when they are having a kid, right? So when like so one sample is like the women who have the postpartum depression, and the same sample, let's say 40 women, 50 women, they were given some intervention, they were given some mindfulness techniques or yoga techniques, and then if we again measure their postpartum depression, so that is your longitudinal design. I'll give you another example. Let's say, there are certain happiness indicators. So these happiness indicators, let's say you uh, pick up a sample of students in your college and you give them various therapies related to happiness, like various therapies related to stress and all that. And then again, when uh, after giving that therapies, you measure the results. That is your longitudinal research design. It differs from the cross section because here the sample remains same. So you can see this diagram. Cross section में sample surveyed at T1, तो longitudinal में sample surveyed at T1 and the same sample surveyed at T2. So here it is the secondary data analyzed in a quantitative as opposed to qualitative. It includes the surveys, it includes the panels which are included, includes the observation and other data also. So how it is used? It is used to describe the characteristics of certain people, then to estimate the percentage of units, to determine the perception of the people with regard to certain products or with regard to certain phenomena, and degree to which marketing variables are associated. This is the use of descriptive research. And again, if you want to make some specific prediction, you want to measure the job satisfaction of a group, you want to study some survey of the insurance employees. So that all research, most of the management related or social sciences research, I'm saying most of, not all, most of the research is the descriptive research, right? So it includes the surveys and fact findings. Let's say again, here you have no control over the variables and you can report only what is happening, right? You take the sample and then you collect the data, analyze it in the statistical tools and see what is happening. Let's say shopping preferences, consumer behavior, etc. And it answers the question what, not why. Why wala answer tha, that was in your exploratory research. It answers the questions with respect to what. Let's say, for example, effect of TQM practices on organizational efficiency, and again, data pertaining to a player to reach a conclusion how much price to quote in IPL. So that is something, this is your analytical research. That is analytical research. It focuses on the analyzing the effect of one variable on the other, whereas your descriptive research, it includes the fact finding. Uh, Another is your conceptual research, that is related to some abstract or theory, and you just pick up a theory and build upon it. And applied research is, uh, it aims to solve the immediate problem facing in the society. Let's say causal research is, does a change in X cause a change in Y? And there are laboratory experiments and field experiments generally done by the sciences people. It is to understand which variables are the cause variables and which variables are the depend effect variables, right? So again, causal research design here, it is mostly your experimental. So when we want to describe the task involved in the research design, first of all, always again, go for the information, what is required, then design the exploratory, descriptive or causal phases, specify the scaling procedure or measurement, means you develop a questionnaire or construct a questionnaire, specify the sampling or sample and develop a plan of data. So this is just an overview of what we did. Right, this is what we do. Right, exploratory research design means you formulate the problems, develop the hypothesis, right? And there are the types like literature review, literature search, when we search the literature and we find certain things, right? Then again, analysis of the cases. Then we study the focus group. For what is focus group? Focus group is like, focus group is a very short group of 10 to 12 people, uh, where in and that group of 10 to 12 people who are who you take the interview, and then you reach to some conclusion from the interviews. Ethnographies means that there is some scientific description of different races, and when we study the culture, right? Then descriptive way, we study the longitudinal study, panel study or survey. And causal is, it provides evidence against the causal relationship, that is laboratory or field experiments. So again, to conclude that research cannot be compartmentalized, means different bases of classification can put research into different categories, right? Analytical can be empirical, right? Where you are analyzing, let's say, relation between the ICT adoption and individual income of the farmers. Applied can also be conceptual, right? And descriptive can be empirical, both qualitative and quantitative. You start with the mixed method, right? Fundamental also can be, conceptual, because you propose some theory. Fundamental research can also be quantitative. So most of the research is in the social sciences is a combination of two or more types of researchers. So this research design, which comprises of what the study is about, what the study is being made, where will the study be carried out, because research design is the blueprint, no? So which everything comes from, to start from what is research to which techniques of data collection will be used, which techniques to analyze the data. And so, well, let's say, when you're planning a trip, first of all, where you want to go, right? Then what should you carry with that, what should be the mode of the transport, let's say. Then you always also think of the hotels and all that, right? And who will provide you the data regarding the hotels, your laptop or your computer? Then which time period, where you, what time you will be going to for a, when you, what is the time when you're planning a trip? It is, in North India it is extreme cold when you have to carry all the jackets, and similarly when it is something, May or June, then the weather is quite hot, right? So what would be the time of your trip, and which all places you will move, because obviously if you want to come here for North India for, it is a 5 days, so 5 days where you can't, go to all the places. You can go to a selected stats. So that is, what type of the sample you'll be choosing and what techniques you will be used to move from one place to another. So likewise, the research design, it starts, it's your planning, it starts the initially and what, where to go, and then finally, it happens, and then it's, coming back also. So it's a blueprint of the entire your research, right? So likewise, you design a problem, review the literature, formulate hypothesis, design a research. Again, then you get the data, analyze the data, and interpret and report. So this is very general, which I already spoke, which should be appropriate, efficient, economical, and likewise, it should include time and cost, budget. Obviously, you have to see the budget, the design, which again, you need to take care of the errors in your design. It should also specify the sources and the type of information which is relevant to your research problem, and which approach should be used for gathering and analyzing the data. Because see, research design, it starts, again, the entire blueprint. I'm again saying it's entire your research, how you are, conducting to, or how you will carry forward your research. You start from um, picking up the research method till collection of data, analysis, and then report writing, right? So the, again, one single design cannot serve the purpose of all type of research problems. For this, again, you need to have the multiple, uh, what I suggest to my students is multiple, you can use descriptive and analytical, you can use qualitative and quantitative, go for the mixed method research design. That is what is the need. Now, simply, when we see the research papers, we see, okay, people are just using the word, okay, we use the convenience sampling, we use the, um, let's say we used convenience sampling, we used snowball sampling, we used non-probability sampling techniques. But why you have used a non-probability sampling technique? Why? What is the reason? That reason needs to be justified, right? Otherwise, nowadays, it's a multi-stage sampling also, which is being used. Like, let's say, if we worked on a paddy stubble burning case, so where we collected the data. So first of all, we divided the entire Punjab into certain zones. From where from those zones, we picked up the, the districts, and then those districts where, this fog or stubble burning cases were more, we picked up the farmers from there. So, right, this is how we go about the research. And ideally, when we write a research paper, what is more required is the sampling. Because see, uh, myself being a reviewer, what I don't give more, stress to the this figures part, because that figures are already calculated by the software. So there's no point in calculating, verifying the calculation, because this is said, until and unless there is something, very stringent, which is being noticed, right? So what is important is the conceptualization plus your this thing conceptualization plus the methodology. what was the sample, how you arrived at the sample, how the data was collected. Most of the time, the reviewers are asking the same thing, right? So, with this, I conclude my session. And yes, I'm there for question answer in case you want to ask any questions. Please proceed. Yeah, over to you. Yes, participants, in case you want to ask any question, please.